Thank you so much for joining us for CBN NewsWatch. I'm Ephraim Graham. Ahead today, developments on the hearings held this week in Congress regarding the impact of overturning Roe v. Wade. Plus, one watchdog group is demanding answers when it comes to the Palestinian Authority's handling of finances received from the United States, Israel, and the European Union.
No one really knows how the Palestinian Authority plans to use their money that they have coming in every year. International donor money, Israeli money that's coming in as a result of the Oslo Accords, and even their own money.
We'll take a look at some of the issues the group found. Then later, we'll take you into the virtual world and explore church in the Metaverse.
We always say if we're going to reach people that no one else is reaching, we're going to have to do some things that no one else is doing.
All these stories and more coming up next from the CBN Newsroom.
This is CBN NewsWatch.
We begin this half hour in Washington, where the Justice Department announced Supreme Court justices are under 24-hour security. It comes after the leaked draft of a decision striking down Roe v. Wade sparked nationwide protest, including outside the homes of some of the justices. On Capitol Hill this week, Congress held hearings on the impact of overturning Roe v. Wade. Caitlin Burke has our top story.
Democrats called Wednesday's hearing a chance to educate Americans on the consequences of overturning Roe v. Wade, while Republicans said it was just another effort by the left to intimidate the high court.
Overturning Roe would remove from women the power to decide the fundamental question of whether to carry or terminate a pregnancy, and instead would give that power to the state.
Representative Jerry Nadler, the chairman of the House Judiciary Committee, says the nation stands at a constitutional crossroads.
For the first time in its history, the court may be on the precipice of overturning precedent to take away a constitutional right.
But Republicans say this conversation shouldn't be happening because an official ruling from the Supreme Court hasn't yet been released, just a leaked opinion.
We've never had a draft Supreme Court opinion leaked like this before. This dangerous, unprecedented situation is what we should be discussing at this hearing. After all, this committee has oversight over the Supreme Court, and we're charged with making sure that it functions properly.
Republicans calling the hearing an effort to intimidate the high court and further interfere with its process. Democrats dismissed those accusations, quizzing expert witnesses instead on how revoking Roe v. Wade could impact pregnant mothers and even other protected constitutional rights.
Gay marriage is at stake, the ability to adopt if you are gay at stake, interracial marriage at stake. It only takes one local county clerk to say, I disagree.
Catherine Glenn Foster with Americans United for Life was the only pro-life witness.
Ms. Foster, in your opinion, is a child sucking its thumb, knowing if it's left or right-handed, able to feel pain, but not yet delivered from the mother, does that child, to you, represent a human being?
To me and to every embryology textbook out there, yes. If they're not human, what are they?
Candidly and openly calling for a nationwide ban on all abortions with no exceptions for rape or incest. And if I've got that wrong, I would invite Ms. Foster to correct me. Do I have it wrong, yes or no?
If we added rape and incest exceptions, would you vote for it?
Okay, I reclaim my time.
Caitlin Burke, CBN News, Washington.
It's official. The Centers for Disease Control recommends the Pfizer booster shot for children ages 5 to 11, at least 5 months after their initial shot.
The clinical trials did show an excellent safety profile. The side effects seen with this booster dose in this age group were very similar to those seen with, let's say, the flu vaccine, soreness at the injection site, in some cases, some headache, fever, chills. Again, zero serious safety signals in clinical trials.
This comes as COVID-19 cases are on the rise, averaging nearly 100,000 a day. That is up 22% compared to last week. The CDC is now recommending masks indoors again as well. Now to the latest in Vladimir Putin's war against Ukraine. New video smuggled from Ukraine shows the horror unfolding throughout the country with no end of war in sight. $40 billion is on its way from Congress. CBN's Brody Carter has more.
Ukraine's president is calling Russia's war there hell on earth. This point-of-view footage taken from a medic's body cam was smuggled from Mariupol in a tampon. From the death of a little boy to footage showing the treatment of wounded soldiers from both sides, this medic's footage captures the horror unfolding in Ukraine. The medic behind the camera is now in Russian hands. Her footage comes as more than 1,700 soldiers, who were called the last defenders of the Azovstal steel plant in Mariupol, surrendered to the Russians. Moscow authorities say it appears to be the final stage in the nearly 3-month siege of the strategic port city. Video from the Russian Defense Ministry shows Ukrainian fighters, both male and female, handing themselves over. Many are seen here being taken by the busload to the Russian-controlled city of Alenevka. Russian television shows wounded Ukrainians receiving hospital treatment. These soldiers are now prisoners of war. Ukraine hopes to get them back in a prisoner swap, but Russia wants to investigate some of them for war crimes, calling them Nazis and criminals. Even though many surrendered, an unknown number of Ukrainian defenders still remain in the bunkers and tunnels under the Azovstal plant. President Zelensky says the Donbass region is completely destroyed as Russian forces intensify its bombardments. He says the Russians are killing as many Ukrainians as they can to carry out its genocide.
The yeas are 86, the nays are 11, and the bill is passed.
Back here at home, the Senate approved $40 billion in aid money for Ukraine. The measure passed as Russia's war enters its 4th month with no end in sight. Brody Carter, CBN News.
And CBN senior international correspondent George Thomas is back after covering the war on Ukraine on the front lines for 3 months. Good to have you back in studio.
Thank you so much, Evan.
So good to be here. The weight of Russia's firepower is starting to make an impact in the east. How much ground are they actually gaining?
Look, I mean, if you look at this map of Ukraine, they have made some ground today in the east. We're talking mile by mile, village by village. They're trying to get all of Luhansk, all of Donetsk, which encompasses the region known as Donbass. So they are making gains. But look, this is a long slog. I've been saying this from the day the war started. The Ukrainians have taken the fight to the Russians, and principally with the help of the United States, getting all of that weapons coming in from the western part, $40 billion, as my colleague Brody mentioned, on its way to Ukraine. I mean, there are strategic weapons that the Ukrainians need so desperately. It's coming in. It has been. But right now, the Russians are on the offensive, and they are taking ground in the east. But again, like I said, this war is far from over, sadly.
Now, the Russians do now control the strategic port city of Mariupol.
Yeah.
What does this mean for their offensive in the Donbass region?
I mean, it is significant. I mean, if you look at that map just one more time, again, you look at it, Mariupol is a strategic part of the city. It's right there on the east part of the country. And what the Russians are going to do in the next few days is redeploy from those forces that were pretty much concentrated on Mariupol because it was so strategic. And I think my sense is that they're going to move them further east, right, and continue to go into the Donetsk, Luhansk region, and perhaps even go further north and to try to encircle them, because it releases some of the pressure valve that they've been feeling for the last 85 days, these 3 months, trying to capture the strategic towns. So my sense is that they're going to redeploy those Russian troops, again, trying to put more pressure in the east for the Ukrainians. But again, the Ukrainians are strategic. I mean, they've been fighting this war, creatively. They've been being very strategic in how they operate. And so again, like I said, this is going to take some time, maybe months, maybe years, possibly.
Wow. Ukrainian Christians continue to make daring rescue operations to extract civilians trapped in the east. What's the latest on those efforts?
I mean, really heroic work. I mean, all along the eastern part of the country, these folks who are trapped, thousands of people who, took shelter, so many of them in their destroyed homes, trying to live life as normal as possible. But these Christian groups are going in, getting them, some of them who want to stay, they're providing relief supplies. They're going through these various checkpoints, getting the relief supplies to these folks. But again, remember, I mean, when you have a home, where are you supposed to go? I mean, where are you, I mean, obviously you can go and stay with friends and family, but for how long? This is their homeland. homeland, and the Ukrainians will continue to provide the necessary resources and the military capabilities to stay their ground. And then, supplemental to that will be these Christian groups that continue to come, bringing desperate humanitarian supplies to these frontline areas.
All right, so much needed. Thank you, George. Always appreciate it. Glad to have you back here, safe and sound.
Thank you.
Coming up, the Palestinian Authority receives millions of dollars from the United States, Israel, and the European Union. But one watchdog group is demanding answers in what they believe is misleading financial information. Stay with us. You're watching CBN NewsWatch. Every year, the Palestinian Authority receives hundreds of millions of dollars from America, Israel, and the European Union. For the past 4 years, no one exactly knows what that money is being spent on. Palestinian leaders will not release the information. The reason? Millions of dollars is likely being used to fund terrorism. Chris Mitchell reports from Jerusalem on a watchdog group now demanding answers.
Over the last few years, the Palestinian Authority has changed its financial reporting, and a leading watchdog group wants to know what it's trying to hide.
It used to publish, albeit limited, financial reportings on a monthly basis and an annual basis, but slowly but surely they've been cutting back the amount of publications that they put out.
After researching the issue, Maurice Hirsch of the Palestinian Media Watch found the PA hasn't published its annual budget in 4 years.
That means that no one really knows how the Palestinian Authority plans to use their money that they have coming in every year, international donor money, Israeli money that's coming in as a result of the Oslo Accords, and even their own money. Almost every country in the world publishes a budget. The Palestinian Authority, which is so dependent on international aid, doesn't publish its budget.
Hirsch says even published accounting information of what had been spent is now missing.
When you go onto the website of the Palestinian Ministry of Finance, there is no access to any financial details whatsoever.
CBN News repeatedly attempted to contact the Palestinian Authority, but was unable to get a response. Since its beginning in 1994, the international community has basically funded the Palestinian Authority. More than half of that money comes from Israel, mostly taxes collected from Palestinians working in the country. While the PA collects domestic taxes, the rest of its funding comes from the European Union and the United States.
The reason really that they're trying to hide their finances is that Palestinian Media Watch has repeatedly used the reports that they do publish in order to highlight the fact that they pay hundreds of millions of dollars in rewards to terrorists every single year.
That's why Congress passed the Taylor Force Act in 2018. Taylor Force was a U.S. military veteran murdered in a terror attack in Israel. His murderer was killed in the attack, and so his family receives a stipend because he was a terrorist. The Taylor Force Act doesn't allow the U.S. to give direct economic aid to the PA unless it stops paying stipends to terrorists and the families of dead terrorists.
There's just the aid which is going indirectly via U.S. aid for the benefit of the Palestinians.
USAID and the United Nations Relief Works Agency funding goes to infrastructure projects to schools and health clinics for the people. But that frees up other monies in the PA budget that could be used to pay terrorists.
What we've also shown is that the PA has been siphoning off almost $1 billion shekel, hundreds of millions of dollars, every year, at least for the last 3 years, to what they call the PLO institutions.
Hirsch says there's plenty the West can do to hold the Palestinian Authority accountable. He also says transferring money to institutions belonging to the PLO should be prohibited. He says these are elementary requirements that should be implemented quickly.
Rewarding terrorism does not promote peace. Siphoning off billions of dollars in order for these PLO institutions to, again, directly or indirectly finance, fund, promote terrorism does not promote peace.
Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
You can see more news from the Middle East with Chris and his team on the CBN News Channel tonight at 8:30 Eastern on Jerusalem Dateline. You can find that on the CBN News Channel or download the CBN News app. Still ahead, it is called the Metaverse, and it could be the way we do church by the end of the decade. We'll head into the virtual world after this break. It is not the usual church service. It's not even your usual live stream service. The pandemic has forced people to think out of the box and into the metaverse. John Jessup brings us this story.
You've probably heard about the metaverse, but what is it and how do you get there? We're about to show you how it all works using a setting you're probably familiar with. We're going to church, unlike you've ever seen it before. It may look like animation, but the characters on your screen aren't cartoon pixels playing church. They represent real people worshiping in the world of virtual reality.
Bless everyone here with whatever they're going through. And in Christ's name we pray. Amen.
This is church in the metaverse, where users in the real world wear VR headsets to guide their avatar selves into a simulated immersive experience. And it's gaining interest among the curious and the faithful.
We found that the environment was just a rich environment for ministry.
Oklahoma-based Life Church now has a campus in the metaverse to add to its 40 other locations.
We always say if we're going to reach people that no one else is reaching, we're going to have to do some things that no one else is doing. That is really just more of our DNA in general, and that when there's new technologies and new platforms and all the new attention that the metaverse is getting today, we want to be present and we want to learn and understand how we can do ministry in it.
Hey, are you coming?
Yeah, just got to find something to wear.
Facebook's dive into the digital dimension helped it gain attraction and legitimacy, with major players from gaming,
some call it skill,
fashion,
welcome semblance, the fashion's entry to the metaverse,
and even healthcare lining up to unleash its potential. Last year, people dropped more than $500 million to get a piece of the metaverse's real estate. While some see it as a revenue generator, a growing number of faith leaders believe it's just another platform to promote the gospel.
There has been this shift of this kind of like fringe technology, fringe experience that's now starting to become mainstream.
DJ Soto launched VR Church in 2016 and predicts a place in the metaverse will soon become just as common as a church's website and social media are today.
By 2030, your main experience for your church will be in the metaverse.
He points to another major benefit.
When you start to experience church in the metaverse, you start to see this whole world of forgotten people who want to be part of a spiritual community, but maybe they don't have a way to be connected to one.
That's what hit home for Alina Delp.
For probably the first couple, 2 or 3 services, I just cried.
A former flight attendant and thrill seeker, she's been confined to her home due to a rare neurovascular condition. For her, streaming had its limitations.
You could watch others be part of the church, but you couldn't be part of the church. And if anything, that just saddened me.
Discovering VR Church gave her a sense of community, initially volunteering as a greeter, then leading a small group. After enrolling in seminary, Alina is now part of the pastoral team, ministering to people from all over the world and from all walks of life.
In VR, people are very open about where they are. There's not the facade. They don't put on their Sunday best and pretend that everybody's a grade A student and life is wonderful. And but they're really honest about what's happening in their lives, which allows us to pastor better.
Skeptics question everything from safety in the virtual reality movement to sound theology to justify its use. Pastor Bobby Grunwald, who developed the YouVersion Bible app, believes the debate over virtual versus physical boils down to reaching people where they are.
We are for meeting in buildings. We're big proponents of it. We have a multi-site church. We meet in 39 different locations physically. We're part of local communities. But we also feel like we have these tools available today that have never been available before in human history that allow us and give us the opportunity to connect and reach people that we otherwise would not be able to reach.
Soto counters that the metaverse is smart use of technology, like when the late Billy Graham went on radio and TV to evangelize the masses.
We're connecting with people digitally, virtually, over airways, if you will, and the relationships and the community and the connections, the salvation and the discipleship is just as powerful as anything that we've seen in the past.
For Life Church, church in the metaverse isn't about choosing the physical over the virtual. It's about the mandate to reach people with the gospel and one of their mantras, which is to do anything short of sin to reach people who don't know Christ. And to reach people no one is reaching, they'll have to do things no one is doing. John Jessup, CBN News, Oklahoma City.
Coming up, see why this man carries a bag and a mirror at every graduation. That's coming up next on the campus of Regent University. Stay with us. A video shot during a graduation ceremony at Regent University is going ultra viral. Harrison KRAMER is a graduate of Regent, and every year he goes to the commencement armed with a tote bag and mirrors to allow graduates to make sure they're photo ready for the ceremony. This year's act of service was caught on camera and made it into TikTok. It has now gained more than 40 million views on both TikTok and Instagram. KRAMER's good deed landed him an interview with CBS Morning News to discuss his newfound fame. He said it's been wonderful hearing from old friends and classmates. Time now for your Friday Faithful. I want to leave you with this message and thought to end the week. God makes no mistakes. Trust Him. You aren't called to understand. You are called to have faith in Him. This is the day to trust God, even when you don't feel like you can trace Him. With that word, I encourage you to make this a fabulous Friday. And be sure to have yourself a wonderful weekend. Do it on purpose and with purpose. That is going to do it for this edition of CBN NewsWatch. I want to remind you, you can always find more of our news programs on the CBN News channel or online at cbnnews.com. You can find them at both places at any time. Also want to let you know that we love to know what you think about the stories you've seen here today. You can email us at that address right there at the bottom of your screen, newswatch@cbn.com. And of course, you can always reach out and touch us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We certainly hope you'll join us again right here next time. Again, a fabulous Friday, a wonderful weekend. We look forward to seeing you right back here, same time, Monday. Bye-bye, everybody.